Welcome to a PhD with Woman on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by Dr. Zorodzai Maroveke. Topic: How hemp can spark jobs and economies. Conversation with Zimbabwe's Cannabis Queen. Episode 130 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you want to discover how hemp can spark jobs and economies. But first, congratulations to our former PhD guest, Shiba Wilson, on successfully launching her new journal, Whispers of Resilience Journal, Prayers from a Widow's Heart. It focuses on 4 areas: faith, family, finances, and friendship. You can grab your own copy with this link in the comment section. Hats off to the Nix Code founder, Sydney Davies, for being chosen as an Economic Recovery Corps Fellow by the International Economic Development Council. Excited to see her lead the way with the National Coalition for Community Capital in Michigan, boosting local investment and supporting businesses. Way to go, Sydney. And finally, last February 11th, we celebrated International Day of Women and Girls in Science. We joyfully extend our greetings to every woman in the tech industry with a happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. May we continue to thrive and support each other in every milestone we take. Now let's go back to our topic: how hemp can spark jobs and economies. With the growing interest in sustainable and eco-friendly products, hemp is making a major comeback in the global market. This versatile plant has been used for centuries for a wide range of products, from textiles to paper to food and medicine. Let's hear from the Cannabis Queen herself, Dr. Zoe Maroveke. She believes that hemp has the power to revolutionize Zimbabwe's economy by creating jobs and boosting trade. By legalizing and regulating hemp production, the country can tap into a lucrative industry that has the potential to generate significant revenue and employment opportunities. The Cannabis Queen also emphasizes the importance of education and training in hemp cultivation and processing. By equipping local farmers and entrepreneurs with the knowledge and skills to grow and utilize hemp, Zimbabwe can harness the full potential of its valuable resources. So, Zoe, where in the world are you joining us from?
Thank you for having me, Beata. I'm down here in the city of Harare, which is the capital city of Zimbabwe in Southern Africa, on the African continent.
Excellent. You're on the go. You're just joining us from the car. That's really interesting to see that it's so dark already with you. It's dark with me in Torun, the birthplace of Nicolaus Copernicus, the famous astronomer who discovered that it's not the sun that evolves around us, Earth. It's the other way around. But today, conversation is going to be around hemp. As we know, many people think it's cannabis, but really it's not just that, because there are so many ways we can extract products from hemp. So maybe Dr. Zoe, you could tell us what can be extracted from this material.
Okay, so hemp is quite a versatile crop, like you rightfully put it. And it's unfortunate or fortunate that it is a cousin of marijuana, but hemp can make products from industrial applications to medicines, and its versatility basically comes from the wide array of industrial applications that we see: textiles, construction, bioplastics, you name it. So that versatility is obviously something attractive in terms of creating more value to the primary producers, which would be the farmers. And from where I am, this part of the world, Zimbabwe is a significant producer of tobacco, in the global industry. And you know, for the longest time, farmers have been looking for alternative crops that give them better revenue, that are more sustainable to produce, and that are eco-friendly. So hemp does present with quite enormous opportunities.
So, what's the regulation at the moment in Zimbabwe?
Okay, so without being boastful, I believe that Zimbabwe has the best legal and regulatory framework on hemp in Africa at the moment. So we have successfully separated medical cannabis from industrial hemp at law. So the two considered very different sectors, even at regulation. So you find that medical cannabis is strictly under the Ministry of Health, and industrial hemp is strictly under the Ministry of Agriculture. So the enabling environment is here, and the government is being very supportive and is continuing to polish the framework so that there can be as much participation from stakeholders as possible.
In the United States, the hemp industry is estimated to have created over 25,000 jobs in 2020 and is projected to reach 500,000 by 2025. Canada, a leader in hemp production, has seen significant growth in the industry, with export reaching 1 billion in 2019. So, what's the situation at the moment with hemp export from Zimbabwe? Do you know?
So, so currently, anybody you hear doing hemp in Zimbabwe is probably doing the botanical, which is the medical hemp, which is obviously not in the same category as medical cannabis. So most of our exports have been farmers who've grown it for its flower to go into Europe for extraction to make nutraceuticals, pharmaceutical products, and sometimes even some food products, some novel food products. And our main gateway into Europe has been Switzerland. So we are yet to actually tap into the real hemp, which is the fiber grain. And as of this year, I'm going to be launching a number of multi-site trials across the country to actually test the crop on Zimbabwean soil and see how we could go to massive scale production for the fiber and grain. So most of the hemp being produced out of Zimbabwe is really for the hemp CBD flower.
So CBD flower, you mean the plant is being exported, but there is not much more production in terms of oils or other products, right?
Yes. So when farmers realized there was no value in just exporting the raw material, a lot of the players have invested in local processing facilities to then value add and create more value in country, more jobs, and of course, increase our export receipts. So yes, we do have a few players that have set up processing facilities in the country, and I think from this year they'll actually start exporting processed products.
Processed products, and what are the most promising sectors within the hemp industry for job creation?
So I think for massive job creation is definitely the fiber grain because it can get to the scale of tobacco. So I can tell you in Zimbabwe, we have more than 300,000 cotton farmers, and these are mainly small scale farmers, marginalized communities, women and youth. So with tobacco, it's about 250,000 hectares. We could say farmers as well, just by estimation to say 1 hectare per farmer. But we are targeting at least an average of about 100,000 hectares for hemp by 2026. And this is just on the primary production. Imagine the ancillary jobs that then come from just the farming. And then there's the intermediary processing, and then there's the actual manufacturing, and all the other services that then come to support the whole value chain. And we are seeing low-hanging fruits in construction, for example, paper, food industry, you also have the bioplastics. So you can just imagine that it's colossal. the number of opportunities that the myriad of value chains that hemp presents can offer. So it's looking exciting in terms of job creation, and we just have to continue developing policy that is supportive to that.
It continues supporting the hemp growers and policies, and definitely quality, because we've seen that, for example, Canada implemented a strict policy making sure that the quality and consistency of quality is taken care of. Now we have some comments from Olga. Greetings, Beata. Hello, Dr. Zoe. Oil has different grades when refined. Is there a difference between the types of hemp and what it is best used for?
Sure. So is there different difference between the types of hemp? So yes, you have CBD derived, oils, which are basically coming from the bud, which is the flower. So they extract these cannabinoids, these terpenes, these different compounds that are very valuable, and they've got different applications from insomnia to some extent cancer. It's arguable, in the academic space and science, but you find that CBD oils are also very different. You have CBG, you have CBV, CBN. So that is a different oil. And then you have hemp seed oil. This is an edible oil, just like you'd have your sunflower oil, sunflower seed oil, or your pecan oil, your olive oils. It's an edible oil that is expressed from the seed. So it does not contain any of the cannabinoids. So yes, there is a difference and used for different applications. So with the hemp seed oil, it can go into nutrition. It can also go into cosmetics and to some extent, pharmaceutical or nutraceutical or complementary medicine. But the CBD oils, yes, they are mainly used as a complementary medicine.
So it's interesting because Zoe, I've heard, I've been to Amsterdam last year, and it's interesting how many products and variations you can purchase in the market in Amsterdam. However, not everything works, as we know, and I even purchased a coffee with hemp oil. There was no side effects. But now we have another question from IPOV. In Patrick's opinion, does one hemp plant usually yield one byproduct or more?
Okay. So before I answer Patrick's question, just to address that not everything works. So with CBD products, it depends what effect you're looking for. CBD is not supposed to make you high or anything like that. Sometimes it's just relaxation. And also, you are very right. There are a lot of opportunists out there who just label CBD because they know everyone is excited about a hemp product, but it actually doesn't have, the value. And this is why regulation is very important to protect consumers, from just the hype. I'm sorry if there's any background noise. I'm in the car park and they're babies. So, Patrick's question: does one hemp plant usually yield one byproduct or more? So, yes, one plant can yield about three byproducts. That is okay, let's say four: your grain, your biomass, and the fiber is then divided into two fibers, the bast and the hurd. So you can get four byproducts from just one hemp plant.
Does
I
it
hope I
mean
answered.
that I hope so too. Does it mean that you have to specialize in different bioproducts, or is some of the farmers just focus on extracting one product at a time?
So it's possible to do a monocrop, just like a fiber crop, but you're still going to get some byproducts like the biomass, which, the leaves and then some do a dual crop where you have the fiber grain. So usually where you have fiber, you're going to let it flower and have the grain, and you're still going to get the biomass. So it's inevitable to try and suppress the amount of value that hemp gives you. However, if you want to do the CBD, the flowers for pharmaceuticals and so on, you're really targeting one product. but you're still going to get the stalks, which are not very good for fiber application because they are a bit different from the real hemp. So, yeah.
Well, I guess also when you focusing on not necessarily fiber for textiles, it's a completely different process when you're producing something for oral use, for human use. Now,
Mhm.
Patrick's follow-up question, is the processing expensive and or does hemp tend to be exported raw or processed?
So the processing may seem expensive depending on the product, the end product that you want to make. But let me hasten to say, because hemp is seeming like a new crop globally, you'd find that there isn't infrastructure for it, especially post-harvest processing. There's the decortication process, there's the retching process, which is proving to be expensive because it was just not there. But you have seen that I think in the US, in Montana, they've actually set up a facility that does, post harvest processing for these byproducts I spoke of, and then they actually sell these byproducts to manufacturers. So it's self-regulating. I think in the next 5-10 years, we'll find that hemp will be able to compete with the cotton industry, with the bioplastics, with the plastic industry. It's really an issue of lack of infrastructure because it's coming up as a new industry. And then does hemp tend to be exported raw or processed? So again, it depends on your final product. You can export raw flowers, but it's not that valuable. It's always best to semi-process or fully process and then you export. That way you get more value. And because the industrial hemp is quite bulky, it's not the best thing to export it raw. It's quite expensive. The logistics would be totally ridiculous. But exporting a final product, yes, can be a good export business.
Can be good opportunity. So, what inspired you to go into this product to develop your skills and knowledge into hemp?
That's an interesting question, Beata. So I'm a dental surgeon by profession, and I stumbled upon this hemp thing by accident. And to be honest, I bought a dress when I was studying in China, and I just didn't understand the type of fabric. So the next day, I went back to the shopkeeper and I said, "What kind of fabric is this?" And she responded to me in Chinese, unfortunately, and she wrote the character of the type of fabric, which meant hemp in Chinese, but I didn't know what hemp was. So when I got home, I went on online. Uh-oh. I went online, and the next thing, I'm seeing cannabis leaves popping up on the screen. So I then started developing an interest, and then I learned that, oh, this marijuana is not just what we know. There's actually another type of cannabis which can make textiles and so on. So I just developed an interest and made a decision after my bachelor's that I was not going to take up a master's in dentistry, but I was actually going to go back to my country and um, lobby my government to legalize hemp because I realized that the socio-economic and environmental impact on my people would have been much bigger than myself just being an ordinary dentist. So that is what motivated me to say I could help in legalizing hemp, and it could create more jobs than what I could do to help people as an ordinary dentist. So I hope that summarizes it. We've lost a bit of light there.
So, how will the global market for hemp products impact economy, not just from the perspective of creation of jobs?
Mhm. So it's quite an interesting dynamic considering we've got mainstream industries who will probably not be happy with hemp for obvious reasons. Um, you know, if you look at the history of the criminalization of hemp, which was unjustly criminalized, by the way, it was such that the nylon, the polyester, the cotton, the petroleum companies had come up, and hemp was really a very like serious competitor for them. I think you know the whole Henry Ford stories, and these industries lobbied for hemp to be banned. And because over time, as humans always do, we have seen the climate change crisis, and we are seeing hemp coming back and potentially getting back into the mainstream industries. So I think in the global, economics, it's quite disruptive, and it's only disruptive because we choose for it to be disruptive. I think it's an opportunity for mainstream players who are in industries that are not very eco-friendly to diversify and not look at hemp as competition, but a way to complement their businesses as they are moving towards the climate change agenda. So that's how I look at it. But yeah, it could be contentious, for depending who is looking at the matter.
Mm. Well, as you noticed, the fact that your economy is solely focused, it used to be focused on um, tobacco industry, which, as we know, some countries in European Union are already banning tobacco products, and there will be more regulation when it comes to tobacco production. So definitely there is lots of jobs to be made. But are there any specific skills or training needed for these jobs?
I would like to believe so. So the good thing about Zimbabwe is we have a very strong pedigree in agriculture generally. I think you've seen recently Zimbabwe has become the biggest exporter of blueberries, which is a great milestone. So we have um, very strong skills in agriculture. But yes, hemp is a new crop, and we don't have localized skills throughout the value chain. Like I said earlier on, as much as someone might be a great agronomist, but they're not a hemp agronomist. So there are skills that we need to bring into the country. There's education, there's awareness that needs to happen at every professional level, at even policy level, and technical things like textiles. So most of our textile producers are great cotton textile producers, but they're not hemp. So you'd have to customize that. There's need for adaptation of technology, maybe tweaking what already is on the ground. So yes, there's a lot of work in terms of localizing the skills from market leaders like Canada, China, some parts of Europe are well versed with hemp, France, for example. So yes, we will have a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for education. It's an opportunity for new skills, and young people who might not have skills may actually be able to take up some programs so that they're employable in this new value chain.
And what are the potential challenges to ensuring fair wages and working conditions in the hemp industry? Because, for example, looking at the coffee business, we've heard that there was fair trade implemented and it wasn't really fair. So I'm wondering whether it will have the similar story for Zimbabwe.
You're very right to bring that is a huge concern for someone like me who's been at the fore for fighting for this industry to come to life because it's going to benefit people. And then, you then realize that the same problems we have faced with conventional or traditional crops like tobacco, cotton, sugarcane. It's the same story. The farmer is always burnt. The farmer is always getting the lower end of the stick. And I am hoping in my work right now, if you see, one of our focal areas is investment promotion, and we are trying to make sure that this is in line with ESG investing. Whatever government puts in place, and once the industry takes off, is going to speak to ESG investing and making sure that it takes care of the farmer. It also makes sure that we have value across the value chain coming back to the farmer because they seem to be the ones that get burnt the most. So I'm hoping that we'll have a new model that has never been seen before, and that is going to be borrowing lessons learned from coffee, lessons learned from tea in East Africa, lessons learned from tobacco in Southern Africa. So that is my prayer and hope that the work that I'm doing will actually create a new precedent in how agriculture, large scale, involving small scale farmers, will actually be implemented for now and the future.
So, just to let our viewers know, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So, now one thing that many people raise is with hemp, there is an issue of water supply because it requires moderate water levels, and that may also lead to soil problems. And so I'm wondering whether there's some work done in terms of mitigating the risks of sustainability.
Okay, so excuse me. So the good thing about hemp, it's a weed that is very beneficial to our environment, the soil included. And we are hoping that in this trial phase, we are actually going through research and development at the moment. And there's a lot of research we are undertaking on the agronomy of hemp, the soil remediation claims, the soil fortification, and of course, it goes into the carbon and all of that. So I think in terms of sustainability, we might see a lot of benefit from growing hemp because the fast growing crop as well. So I hope I answer your question because I think I missed something there. But in terms of sustainability, hemp is presenting itself as one of the most sustainable crops that not just Africa but the globe could actually embark on.
Well, I think there could be one of the risks people are talking about is the invasive species of hemp that can actually go outside of the zone for cultivation. And also the habitat loss, converting natural habitats to large-scale hemp farms can negatively impact local biodiversity. But I guess it's with any crop that can happen. And so now let's go back to the environmental impact. What role can hemp play in regenerative agricultural practices and soil health?
Okay, so my little bit of knowledge as a dentist, not so much an agronomist or an expert in that area, is that hemp has got, like most plants, but a little bit more qualities or ability to do phytoremediation, which is basically cleaning up the soils from, heavy metals and toxic substances. It is also good for soil remediation. Phyto uh, mining is what I meant earlier on, where you can actually extract minerals from the soil, which is an eco-friendly way of extraction for some of these big mining uh, companies that have a lot of dump sites. Instead of using cyanide, they could try using the phytomining method. Then you also have the soil remediation in terms of cleaning up the soils for heavy metals. So that's one. And then when it comes to the crop itself, is said to be able to sequester carbon at least 2 or 3 times more than trees in the same area. So if it's 1 hectare of trees versus 1 hectare of hemp, it's going to sequester more. But the opportunity that we have with hemp is that it also maximizes land use for food production. So if you have 1 hectare of trees, it's going to take 10, 20 years for those trees to mature if you're going to actually chop them down eventually and use them for timber. I don't know. But with hemp, it's a biannual crop that you can actually rotate. For example, if you want to have sustainable tobacco production, you would rotate your tobacco with cotton because they have similar climatic requirements. So hemp is giving us so many environmental benefits from soil health. If you're, for example, in Zimbabwe, we are a big cotton producer as well, but cotton is a bit heavy on our soils because of the pesticides and the chemicals. So if you rotate with hemp, you find that over time, your field is becoming stronger. It's fortified. It's much healthier. So it does also help with that as a rotation crop. And of course, the carbon sequestration is quite huge. And then its end use has an impact on the environment. Because if you talk of construction, for example, it's said that hemp buildings can sequester carbon over years, where these buildings become stronger over time by petrifying. So I think the environmental benefits and the climate impact that hemp could have is quite huge. It's quite colossal, and I think we should take advantage. that hemp is a renewable resource. It's not like trees. You can't be chopping down trees to make toilet paper, which people need every day, and trees take 20 years. So I don't understand the sustainability of trees. But yeah, hemp does compete.
There you go. Now, let's go back to the talking about investment opportunities. And Patrick is asking another question. We can extract grain, biomass, fiber, and there is a lack of infrastructure. Fascinating. How do we build that infrastructure and where? Is it costly and time consuming?
The good thing is that we are now in a global village, so we benchmark. We don't. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, because in Africa we might be developing nations, but the work that I've done, particularly in the lobbying, I have been borrowing lessons from Canada, Australia, the US, and like I said earlier on, China is quite advanced. There is infrastructure, there is technology, there is equipment available. The United States, for example, they've set up a very impressive facility in it's in Montana, I think, and it's not going to take years like it would have been 10, 15 years to say do we develop a hemp value chain, because we don't know where the where to get the technology or the equipment. So the global village does help in sharing ideas and maximizing on each other's strengths. We have obviously huge amounts of land. The Western countries have got technology, expertise, intellectual property, so that those partnerships, strategic partnerships, will shorten the learning curve, will accelerate the route to commercialization. And is it time consuming? I love that hemp grows so fast, so it'll be easy for us to actually see our results when we do embark on commercial projects. So how do we build that, and where? I'll say Africa. Africa is the future of production, because we have a lot of competitive advantages in terms of cost of production compared to other countries. Okay, China excluded, that's an exception. But yes, I think Africa is great because of our climate, our land, our soils, the people, and of course we need the development here.
And in terms of infrastructure, how is hemp then being delivered to Europe or US
Come
from
again?
Africa? In terms of infrastructure, how is hemp being delivered via, plane or is it via cargo ship?
Oh, okay. So you mean how do we export? So logistics have been a challenge for the guys who are doing the flowers, because that's a sensitive product. Some jurisdictions don't want that product because they have not legalized it. And in all fairness, if it's particularly medical cannabis, you are not able to export it into the United States, because in federal law, the US has not actually legalized, and it happens to be the biggest consumer. And so that's quite sad because it's a huge market. But for other products like the CBD hemp flower, most guys have been air freighting, because it's almost like a perishable. You don't want it on the ship for too long. So yes, it's been air freighted, and that's really on the logistics side of things.
Great discussion, Olga says. So, do I understand correctly that hemp can have oil extracted and be used for products such as hemp rope or even handbags, for example? Is that correct?
That is correct.
I see that it appeals to Olga. That's a great question. And as you said, you saw a garment produced with hemp in China, and that's what attracted you to hemp. Now, in terms of investment and policies, what type of investments are needed to support the growth of hemp industry in your country?
Okay. So first and most important investment is in research and development, which is where I am now. It pains to try and make sure we don't start an industry to fail. And creating a very strong foundation for successful commercialization is key. And I think that research and development is inevitable, it's imperative. If we look at your biggest corporates in the world, you know, your Apples, your Microsoft, your the types of Elon Musk projects, they invest a lot in R&D for them to be where they are today. So the first type of investment is on in research and development to make sure that we have proof of concept and evidence that justifies why there should be further investment and capital into the actual businesses. The second investment would obviously go into the agriculture, capacity building to make sure that farmers are able to actually produce a quality product and we maximize on the land. So obviously it's inputs, the whole aggregated agriculture type of setup. You're going to need investment for the production of the crop. You're also going to need investment in the post-harvesting infrastructure, that is semi-processing it into the raw materials that then go into manufacturing. You're going to need investment into the factories themselves, the actual product development, the actual products like the plastics. And that means investment into technology, intellectual property, you know, and so on. And last but not least is all the other ancillary businesses that then stem off, logistics, like you mentioned earlier. You have accounting, engineering. The opportunities are colossal. So there is just so much space, so much room for everybody to find an opportunity.
And how can stakeholders collaborate with you or with your country? Is there any association you can recommend?
Yes, so we, as the Zimbabwe Industrial Hemp Trust, we are the national champion for industrial hemp primarily. We also have a sister Cannabis Industries Association of Zimbabwe, which I'm the current president again. Um, but for industrial hemp particularly, we are the major player and representative body for the private sector. So we are open to partnerships in academics, universities, research and development, investment for the current project we're working on, which is to the tune of $3 million for us to look at four aspects of research: agronomy, industrial processing, the business models, and the climate impact. So people can get in touch with me through Beata. She'll be able to give you my contacts if you feel like there are some areas of synergy where we can partner. We work very closely with the government of Zimbabwe to continue polishing policy and to create an investment package for foreign direct investment to come in the country.
So apart from getting in touch with you, are there any specific actions that individuals or businesses can take to support the growth of hemp industry?
Come again, Beata?
Apart from getting in touch with you, I'm asking whether businesses can do some actionable points to encourage the hemp growth of hemp industry.
Globally?
For example.
Okay, I think there's a lot. We need to make sure that the countries that have legalized need to also lobby the countries that have not legalized, because trade will be very difficult if your next door neighbor is not growing hemp and you are growing hemp. And, so especially in the African region, we are seeing very slow movement on legalization of hemp. There's been a lot of activity, of course, in the southern part and a bit of East Africa, but West Africa has been lagging behind. North Africa, Central Africa. So, and you also see that in Europe, there are countries that have actually not moved on hemp legislation. So, I think uh, those who are willing to do, activists for sustainability and climate change, everybody can participate to make sure that we tap into this opportunity that hemp presents to our planet. It's not just countries, but we have a serious crisis, and hemp could not fix all of our problems, but could be very significant and relevant in our fight against climate change.
Now, I guess my question will be, what are your predictions for the future of hemp industry, both domestically and globally?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I'll be quoted by the future, right?
Right.
I see
Well, the word
hemp,
from the Queen.
yeah, to the future. Well, I do believe that domestically for my country, I see hemp being one of the major cash crops and alternative crops that will help farmers transition from tobacco in the near future and having immense value in terms of the applications, creating new industries, new jobs in manufacturing and so on. I also see hemp being quite disruptive for mainstream industries that depend on cotton, that depend on, of course, tobacco. And globally, I think hemp is going to bring a lot of diversification of mainstream industries, creating jobs, of course. But I see hemp having a big impact on our global climate change agenda.
Climate change agenda is going to be disrupted. Dr. Zoe, it's been a pleasure to have you. Now, looking from the perspective of I've seen some posts and some industry meetings or conferences, and I've seen lots of white bros talking about hemp. So how is it for you as a cannabis queen, being in this very male populated area?
Wow. Theater, my life journey, I'm actually in the process of writing my book. And I'm not sure if I'm actually going to be able to touch on the aspect of being a female in such a new space and predominantly male, because it's not just the cannabis industry that I've had to deal with the fact that I find myself as the only woman in a room. It's just even the political terrain that I've had to navigate. You know, I've mainly dealt with men in the corridors of power. And you'll find that I need to get things done on policy. I'm lobbying and I'm sitting in a room with 7 politicians. And I'm the only female there, but I'm not cognizant of it until I leave. Like, oh, I was the only female there. But for me, I think my strength comes from the fact that I don't go about my life every day telling myself that I'm a woman. I just tell myself that I'm a human being. I deserve to be respected. I deserve to respect others. Um, but it's been a little challenging of recent because men have their own kind of communication. So sometimes they might look at you and you might say something and they find you to be a bit emotional, uh, which is not very often with me. But I have encountered a few challenges here and there, where people will try to muzzle you or bully you, and then they bring out this other you that you didn't even that existed. So I would be fair to say my journey has been interesting more than challenging because I'm a woman. I don't know if that actually makes sense.
Oh,
It's been
absolutely. When women thrive, economies thrive, as Hillary Clinton said. I'm not trying to encourage people to follow American politics. However, I think it's apt quotation to use here. And as we are heading towards the end of the show, and you mentioned that sometimes your blood boils, I'm wondering, as Eleanor Roosevelt said, women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water. So I'm wondering, in life, how are you in hot water, Zoe? How are you brewing?
Oh my goodness, I think I'm coming out as a very strong tea. You might need to add some more hot water.
you're you're not a stranger to hot water, hot climate, hot crop. It's all coming to you, and it's good, right?
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, I've discovered things about myself that I would have never um probably figured out as an ordinary dentist.
Mm-hmm. Tell us
Yeah.
more.
Okay, so for example, um this whole thing started off as a joke, to be honest. I just thought it was as simple as I come back from China, and you remember the time I started was 2015, and this was the time that we had one of the strongest presidents in Africa. I don't say dictator, but I'll say one of the strongest presidents in Africa, and he was my president at that time, Robert Mugabe. And people feared for me, like, oh my God, how are you going to go and convince Robert Mugabe to legalize something that is not like cannabis, but it's cannabis? But I was bold. Um, I think because I was also young and a bit naive. You know, they say you can send a chicken to run past lions and it won't even know, but a zebra won't do that. And I
Mhm.
think at that time I was just a chicken running past lions, and I'm like, oh well, it's not a big deal. What's the big deal? And I was very brave, very tenacious. I was um, relentless. You know that I have. I'm going to do this because it's going to benefit so many people, and I want to do something with impact. And as I got into it, I was like, oh my God, what have you just done? I started realizing that I went inside the mouth of a crocodile. I danced in there and I walked out. And I was like, did you just do that? And it continued to happen. I continued making bigger and bigger milestones, doing things, breaking new ground, things that had never been done by a young woman in my country before. And yeah, so I kind of got used to it and it became an art. So lobbying and advocacy became an art for me, and I love it. I became a strategist. I love it, and I live to just bring a change whenever I think I'm confident and I believe in something. Yeah.
That's fabulous to know that you're breaking the chains of whatever cultural perspectives are. And the race of women is the greatest single factor driving economic growth today, as Sheryl Sandberg says. So, going back to the number one book that you can sit and think, oh, I wish I read it before I started my career. What is the title and who's the author?
The Art of War, Sun Tzu. I love the book, Beata. You've no idea. It's it's so applicable in our day-to-day life, whether you're an executive, whether you're a military, professional. And it basically just teaches, because you can imagine for the past 8 years, I have bumped into people who don't agree with what I want to do. And some, they just don't stop at disagreeing with you, but they can get aggressive. And in that moment of conflict, you want to come as somebody who's got uh, the ability to deal with conflict in an honorable way, um, in a dignified way, but you also want to be unassailable. You also want to make sure that you come out unscathed, but without also losing your honor. So that book, it basically helped me to understand myself as a strategist and empower me as a strategist. I always choose a path of least resistance, and basically, it's winning wars without fighting. That's what I love about the art of war, and yeah, it's helped me a lot in my journey.
That's fabulous. Well, how many wars can you win before you gonna just take a rest, Dr. Zoe? I'm just wondering whether there is no stopping of you.
Um, I still have a few wars to fight. As a woman, I think I've given myself 2 years when it comes to breaking through to something significant that I can say I'm retiring and I'm proud of myself. I think 2 years on the hemp side. And the other wars are, being a mother, being a wife. I do intend to get married again. I would love to have children. And those are different wars of life, right? So I'm looking forward to the challenges that life will present. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now let's go to your life lesson quote. What is it and how did it change you?
And unfortunately, Beata, my life lesson quote is by myself. And
Okay,
I hope this helps others. So, quote by Dr. Zoe uh, is everything you know is all you know, but it isn't everything there is to know.
tell us, extrapolate on that.
I knew you were going to say that. So I found out that, I'll give a simple example. You might know the whole Bible
Yeah,
from Genesis to Revelation, but it does not mean you know everything about religion. You only know about the Bible and Christianity. But there is so much more to know about religion, because then there's the Quran, then there's the philosophies of Buddha, and it doesn't stop there. Even if you knew all of that, you still don't know much about spirituality. So I'm that one person who believes in knowing something about everything and not everything about one thing. And this is why I'm a dentist who is now doing, who's now a hemp advocate. So I always encourage people to not get so immersed in everything that they know. I could be a specialist. I could have been a specialist of teeth, Beata. And if that had happened, I would not have been able to have this conversation with you because I would not have an idea what hemp is and what you're talking about. So, yeah, we never know until we know.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as somebody else said, the longer I live, the more I know that I don't know. Now, let's imagine that you could meet any person in the world and have private breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you choose and where would you go to?
Hmm. Let me think a little about that one. A breakfast. Oh, okay, I know. Uh, it will be Sheikh Mohammed, the Prime Minister of Dubai.
Okay. Why?
Because I read a book that was written by one of his lieutenants. His name is Dr. Yasser Jar, I think. I don't know how to pronounce it. And, he was just explaining where and his style of leadership. And I was reading this book, Beat, and I'm like, I'm not crazy. His whole vision from sand, like just a whole desert, and this vision that he had, and the naysayers, but he just had this passion, he had so much faith. And I realized I'm not crazy because the things that he says in the book and the philosophies that he applied are things that I say like in my day-to-day life, like, yeah, but we could just do this as a country. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. A whole check actually thinks this could work. So he inspires me a lot because then I immediately realize that he's a visionary and I might be a very small somebody in my country, but if I can think like a sheikh, that can inspire me, and I'd love to hear more about his journey and how he had this big vision of Dubai today. So yeah, breakfast would be great. If you can
And
get me
where
that
would you?
breakfast,
Yeah.
if you could get me
Where?
breakfast with the Fiata, that would be awesome.
Uh-huh. So I presume it's gonna be in Taj Mahal or somewhere exotic or somewhere in Dubai.
Well, somewhere in Dubai that I've never been to. I would love that.
Okay. That's it,
I
episode 30 of PhD live stream. Thanks to our guest, Dr. Zorodzai Maroveke. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Woman on it and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. Next week, we're gonna have a guest, Kristen Tippett, the ROI of running entrepreneurship. So I encourage everyone to join us next week. And thank you so much for our lovely audience who participated and asked questions: Olga, Vasina, Patrick, Young. And as always, our positivity quote comes from Positive Thinking Only and goes: look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude, as Maya Angelou says. Today is your day to hack the future. Hack the future you want. Thank you.